Straight line Indianapolis, and live from the racing capital of the world, we welcome you to the summer of virtual IndyCar race. Yes, red line, Apex, Coanda, plenty of those drivers to take center stage. And I've got my eyes also focused on the iRacing IndyCar community favorites, the likes of Christian Steele and Rob Milechka, recent iRacing Indy 500 winners, and Phil Kraus, the man that loves to build houses here at the Speedway. 6 races, $7,000 on the line, and the most stacked field of IndyCars iRacing has ever seen. 4 champions, iRacing Indy 500 winners, we've got them all, and a stack up behind, and a crash already! Oh, drivers forgetting how to start racing. It's PS competition and Daniel Lorenzo, they get mixed up. That now make their way down pit lane. Your race leader has done 24 laps. Costantini, Veyron going to be following in behind.
Chase is going to be on. Coitert is likely going to take the race lead here.
Where does the 17 emerge though in relation to the oncoming up to speed traffic directly in front of the battle that we've been following? So Coanda, Veyron, the number 9, 27 laps to go, slides in front
of the race lead here because Veyron, Leo, and Costantini all down pit lane simultaneously.
Veyron, Leo, Costantini, and then Zandarin and Michael Johnny release themselves from the limiter. And here comes the move for the lead. Leo jinxing the inside, down Holman Boulevard, and slides his way back to the point. 75 laps complete. Eduardo Leo, the best that Indianapolis saw across of the race. From high-speed oval thrills to the brawl of a street race. Welcome along to the circuit Gilles Villeneuve and to the streets of Montreal. We get ready to see the NTT IndyCar Series make its way to Toronto, but north of the virtual border here today, iRacing's finest locked and ready to go. Hi folks, Arjuna Kankipati here, ready once again on a Monday night to watch the iRacing IndyCar Series make its way around the iRacing official schedule. Next week, of course, with the Olympic break kicking off for the drivers in the real world, we get to venture into pastures new, to Interlagos, to Homestead, Miami, and to the streets of Chicago. But today, circuit Gilles Villeneuve, quasi-street circuit, yes, in many ways, but the bumpy nature of the track, the high curbs in many ways, very much play themselves out in an interesting Jeopardous challenge for the drivers over the course of the day. Qualifying moments away from wrapping on up, already with the almost 8 minutes in the books. 15 times have been set, with 3 drivers lining up from the very back. It's relatively close through the mid-pack, a little bit larger up towards the front in terms of margins, but it should be a fun race expected with 35 laps of racing on the docket. Drivers have got their instructions to head down trackside to get ready to go for the race itself. Let's take you down to take a look at the starting grid and how they'll line up for the around 50 minutes that we expect ahead of us. It's going to be Phil Kraus and Adam Blocker making it a private label Team Hype and Powerslide Motorsports 1, 2, 3, and 4, with Alexander Van der Sant and Brian Carey split by 1/1000th of a second on row number 2. Fifth to find Sam Carasala. He's got Alan Berteau on his outside as we get ready to rumble. Ethan Stanley and Rashad Craig share row 4, with Seb Alexander and Bevan Moyes making up the rest of the top 10. Nick Sudik and Joseph Manning 11th and 12th positions and around 1.5 seconds off of Phil Krause's pole time, with Craig Forsyth and Frankie Francica sharing row 7. Matt Taylor and Olivia Hayward at the very back of the field, the first driver with no time on the board in that Prismatic Motorsports number 12, and then Lucas Lodato and Andrew Kinsella on his return to a top split on a Monday night for the first time since I think he was commentating on one of them, lines up at the back of the 18 car field. Relatively small numbers, but that's because, of course, multiple splits here on a Monday night. And so this is just a handful of the drivers that are locked in and ready to go. So you can see the drivers parked up just before the hairpin. Will Phil Krause build a house here north of the border? Will Adam Blocker alongside disrupt his flow? Have to wait and see. Or could the potential for someone behind to take advantage of trouble down through the wall of champions? You see up on your screen from up above all of the walls that these drivers are dealing with, and of course that section right here where the drivers will be most concerned. This little wall section, break out my yellow pen, have some fun. And now I've got to find my pen again. Where's it gone? There you go. Remove it from the screen as off and away. There go the drivers. Oh, chaos on RaceSpotTV. What more could you expect? We'll talk strategy once we dive into the race itself. One thing I can tell you right now, only one driver, Bevan Moyes, in 10th position, starting on the softer alternate compound of tire. You see those track conditions, it is a scorcher. Expect drivers to try and keep these primary tires underneath them for as long as possible and to really stretch this initial stint out as best they can. Confirmation, left side of the screen on those starting compound tires. Brandon Rose, Hyperslide, the nickname dubbed now to the private label Team Hype with Power Slide contingent. What can they do from the front? We're missing, of course, Team I5G. Good to have some of the Indy Alliance Racing contingent here. Maybe some satellite racing drivers to show up in the future as well. But here we go. Stack up already slightly as Phil Krause holds them and then punches the throttle. We're racing here from the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve and 1, 2, 3, 4. Power slide instantly. Going to try and hold on to their lead up front. Around the outside for Alain Berteau. Already got the jump on Sam Carasala as we slink our way through center corner. Carasala on the power, trying to get the position back from Berteau. Got Stanley and Craig trying to juke behind them as well, but as they shuffle their way down through the first of the chicanes with some walls on the outside, some big moves being thrown behind, but all in a little bit of desperation to try and now close the buffer. A couple of drivers locked the left front, including Carasala. His teammate Rashad Craig going to get around the outside. No one really using that push to pass until right then Frankie Francica jumps on the button. Craig holds on. In fact, passes Alain Berteau, and you can see the separation, the margin that's just continuing to stretch on out now. Adam Blocker almost runs into the back of Phil Krause momentarily. As through the hairpin. Big send as Nick Sudik's lost a little bit of the front wing already. They go 3 wide off the corner and rumble their way down the casino straight. It's this final chicane to come, and it's a fast one. It's Hyperslide 1 through 4. Ethan Stanley the one trying to put the pressure on. Nick Sudik, the only driver, going to bail off to the safety of pit lane at the first time of asking. With the first lap now officially in the books. Can see the I was going to say move, look from Craig Forsyth. Seb Alexander holds on to his position. In front of them, Bevan Moyes. You remember, started on the alternates. The slightly softer compound of tire gives you a bit more grip. On to the back of Jason Manning. This all for 9th and 10th positions. The teammates up front starting to be split up now. As Krause kicks up a bit of virtual smoke. It's 1.2 then back to Alexander van der Sant. First time we've seen him on a Monday as well. I see Josh Chin in chat, but not racing, so I'm disappointed. Very disappointed. Push to pass used from Rashad Craig, trying to now close up to that top 5. Ethan Stanley doing a very good job to hold his position. And this is not necessarily a track where we expect the swapping back and forth like we might at some other road courses. Blocker and Kraus up front, content to ride for the time being. Jason Brophy says, I should be disappointed in Josh Chin. I'm more disappointed in Jason Brophy, although I guess, you know, there's a couple of things happening today. There's this video game release, apparently, allegedly. There's this thing tomorrow called the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, allegedly, as well. There's a couple of drivers. Ooh! Now one driver definitely, I think, hit the wall. Joseph Manning's really checked up Bevan Moyes. Doesn't seem like there's damage to the front wing. Is there damage on the side pod? All I know is head of steam, Bevan Moyes on the button, and Bevan Moyes through to 9th. Takes advantage finally. What's he going to be able to do from here? Time will tell. Tell you what, fight back coming from Joseph Manning. Doesn't really work, unfortunately. And as they head off onto the casino straight once again, their margins extend. Let's go back in time, though. Check out, if we can, where did the carbon fiber go flying? Where did Nick Sudik lose some of his front wing? Apparently right there. Might have been contact with Bevan Moyes, but very minor. Jason Brooks asks, how much push-to-pass power do you get? About 60 to 70 horsepower. Here in the sim, it's probably a little bit more standard, but it's the number quoted in the real world. You get it 10 times per race here in iRacing land. Slightly different from how it works in the real world, where you get a number of seconds to use over the course of the entire race. How you wish to use them, well, that is totally up to you. Meanwhile, as your leaders continue just to stretch their legs, very impressive job again from Ethan Stanley, who's not just put the pressure so far onto the back of Ryan Carey, but even to Alexander van der Sant in the fight for 3rd position. You can see van der Sant feeling the pressure from his teammate Carey onto the casino straight out of turn 10. And meanwhile, Adam Blocker within 3/10 of his teammate up front. Sliding back and forth after the doubleheader at Iowa. Good to see Blocker working trackside with Juncos Hollinger Racing, joining us as ever. And now, increasingly looking like he might be able to put the fade down into turn 1. But 4 laps complete, no move being thrown. Can see this camera shot as well, just how large the gap has stretched out between the first and second group out on track. And right now the field very much split. 15 seconds, 17 drivers, but not much separation by any means. Rashad Craig still under pressure from his teammate Sam Carasala. We jump on board, watch the hands at work. Second gear, you hear the slide of the tire. Didn't run out too wide, fortunately. Neutral hands off the corner for Carasala. Bevan Moyes right now, remember, the only driver that started on the alternates. So really not thinking too much about a difference in tire strategy between the majority of the field. It will just come down to a little bit of mathematics on the fuel. When do they choose to come down? How do they split this race up? Jason Brophy allegedly has not won a national championship in this alleged video game that has been released today. He says he's only on week 3 now. I don't actually know how many weeks there are, but I'm disappointed. You know, he's had since 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so that's 4 and a bit hours. He's you're only 3 weeks into this game? I'm disappointed. But that sounds like enough time to have played like an entire campaign. See, if this was Football Manager, I'm like already 50 seasons. And that's not true, actually. I spent way too many times on one season. Way too much time. I think I'm at mid-February on my 2nd season right now, and I'm 70 hours in. Anyway, besides the point. Seb Alexander squabbles with Craig Forsyth. Battle for 11th position. Forsyth on the button as well. You can see it light up on the left-hand side when the drivers have got it activated. Allegedly, Jason Brophy has a job, by the way. Allegedly. We all say that. That's how we have to fund our sim rigs, to be fair, so that's how we know it's true. Jason Brooks says, does it charge every lap? So this is not the hybrid, don't forget. This is the regular push-to-pass system still. So we're only talking about the regular extra power, which is generated by consuming just a little bit more fuel. There's a give and take. So if you're doing some fuel saving, ixnay on the push-to-pass. Tape over the button. Do whatever you can. Just remind yourself. Don't use it. Now, what I'm trying to do is go and look at the Hyperslide team data. Where are we? Hyperslide team data showing that roughly, I'm going to give you a rough fuel estimate to go off of here. Where is this Hyperslide fuel data? There we go. It is going to be roughly, give or take, as now Seb Alexander, Lucas Ladada, the Bearcat Motorsports car, going to go around the outside of Alexander into the braking zone. Nice effective move with now Matt Taylor and Andrew Kinsella chalked up behind 2. They're probably looking at around 18 or 19 laps of fuel. See, that's not too secret, fortunately. So are we going to see up front between the teammates a little bit of a differentiator? Here's hoping. As bang, bang, bang down through the gears. Avoid the curbs, those big sausage curbs at least. And running away back to the line. That's the train for Andrew Kinsella. Maybe saving a bit of fuel. You can hear the right foot lifting just slightly. Talking big margins, though, by any means. Oh, Michael O'Brien says pull up those Hyperslide setups. Now, I can pull those up. The problem is they're only good on my computer. Ooh, big slide there from Phil Krause. He's confident, I tell you what, that he can slide up to the wall. I did try one of Phil Krause's Hyperdocs. All I'm going to tell you is he needs to learn what a good car feels like. It's definitely not the driver issue. It's definitely a Phil Krause setup issue. As here we go, more push-to-pass usage. Brian Carey and Rashad Craig, but they've fallen a bit away from their respective battle groupings. Let's go ahead and ride on board with Phil Krause for a lap here at the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve set up in a straight line to break in towards turn number 1. Nice and tight to the apex of turn 2. Krause clambers on the inside curve just a little bit as well, and watch the rear end just try and step out on you as you ask for all the power from the rear tires. Then this second chicane, very careful down the hill as you compress off the corner and unload the car. Flat there through turns 4, 5, and 6, and the braking zone then in a straight line once again as Krause tries once again, just clambering on the curbs to minimize his distance as best as he can. Clearly got the car set up as decently as possible on some of these bumpier parts of the track. Very high anti-cut curbs now coming through a couple of the final corners, so be careful out through turn 8 and 9 and to this famous hairpin where of course Robert Kubica had his almighty crash, but we break in a straight line down to first gear, straighten the car up, and at the same time slowly, progressively roll onto the power and onto the casino straight. You can see the revs rise up to almost 12,000, just trying to bring every ounce of power from the engine as possible, and then back down through the gear. Spot the braking zone on the left, and then flick it right then left. Avoid the curb, avoid the wall, and back to the line. A lap here at Circuit Montreal. And for Phil Krause, that was a 1:22.977, so only about 0.4 of fall off from what he did at the start. Back over to the mid-pack where pit stops, well, ready to get underway. You can see the track temperature's dropped a couple of degrees since we started this race off at around 41. And so it is Craig Forsyth in that number 18 machine. He's first to blink, not Bevan Moyes. In the car that started, of course, on the alternate tire. Moyes has dropped from a 23.1 to a 24.4 in fall off, so there's a bit more fall off for him than Krause so far, but maybe that is to be expected. We ride with Alan Berteau, fight for 6th. Sam Carasala qualified up in 5th position, of course. Shaw Craig started down in 8th. Contrasting races so far for the Indy Alliance Racing teammates. And Josh Chin says, I don't drive. That's technically not true. I drive plenty. Just don't drive against anyone. That isn't an AI. To be fair, iRacing AI in the IndyCar is good and bad. I was talking with a driver at the Prodigy Draft, and they were saying that they do a lot more driving, of course, than me. They are a proper sim racer. They were saying that IndyCar AI has some quirks, as they were putting it. I think that's just an interesting way of saying sometimes they crash into you, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they just crash. Quirky. Well, you see, when you use the word quirky, it's always weird. Do you mean quirky good or quirky bad? It's ambiguous. And maybe that is half the point of that word. Anyway, here comes Matt Taylor. Already 2-point-something seconds the margin Lucas Lodato has built over Seb Alexander. Goes out wide, kicks up some grass. And now, is he going to go defensive off to the hairpin? I've got the long Casino straight still yet to navigate through. Taylor throws it up the inside, and here comes Kinsella to try and follow through. Now both the 10 and the 17 on the button. Olivia Hayward probably watching and thinking, maybe not me too. Kinsella's not going to get close enough to the back of Taylor's Madworks number 10 to have a jink to the inside at the end of the Casino straight. They have to bleed off so much momentum, and here comes the attack from Hayward. Prismatics Motorsport number 12 to the inside of Seb Alexander. Not giving this one up without the fight, holds on. Still got plenty of this race to go. Hayward lights up the rear tires, locks it down, but loses a spot to Frankie Francica, and now to 16th spot. Up front, 1.8 seconds. Your leaders starting to stretch their advantage. Daniel Ferguson says that IndyCar AI not a fun time at Long Beach. Now, my experience of the AI at Long Beach is qualifying in front of them and finishing in front of them. So I don't know what you're talking about. Great experience for me. Maybe less than optimal if you choose to try and do a last to first challenge. As the fight for first and the fight for third now split by almost 8 full seconds. So looking down through the field, Craig Forsyth ended up sitting for 17 seconds in pit lane. So there is the likelihood that some damage repair also being done there. Nick Sudik came in on the end of the opening lap to change his front wing. So 2 drivers down pit lane. And by no means, I think, wanting to be down pit lane. So your gap up front, 2 full seconds as Phil Kraus builds a house here at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. This is the gap for 3rd, 4th and 5th. And then go back to that next grouping with Rashad Craig, Sam Carasala and Alan Berteau. Still some drivers keeping each other very, very honest. Fun track, if we're being honest, to race around. Demands plenty from the driver as we ride with Ethan Stanley. Now you notice the numbers on the left side of the screen. They're all slightly different. That's because they actually pull from iRacing, and the way that, for those that are members, you can go and customize your number profile and your how it all looks for each individual car. I've got to say, Ethan Stanley's number, very McLaren-esque. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the futuristic nature of the font. Phil Kraus's is actually pink and white, so I'll give him that. That's quite good. Then you've got some boring people. Now, I'm going to call out Adam Blocker mainly, just because he's my teammate, and so I can call him out. Look at that number. It's just aerial, isn't it? The only time that aerial is acceptable on a car is if it's an IMSA number board, because they also use aerial. How do I know this? Because I do. And for the record, custom number styles, you know, I gotta say, the ones on the left aren't bad, all things considered. But go and look at the World Endurance Championship for an example of what horrendous custom numbers can look like. No, thank you. I'm about to throw up in my mouth just thinking about it. I think it's the Ferrari numbers that might just be the worst ones as well. Maybe I'm misremembering. As Josh Chin says, WEC numbers are a war crime. I believe that is what the kids say nowadays, Josh, yes. I may just have demonetized this video on YouTube for saying those words out loud, but no, it's anyway, never mind. Donate to RaceSpotTV's Get Out of YouTube Trouble Fund, aka known as the GoFundMe, which we have for these broadcasts, which every donation is very much appreciated. Donation to the spin collection from Olivia Haywood, and out of turn 1 again, unfortunately. The replay will miss nothing. We'll take a look at what happened. But outside of that, your battle's just waiting, I think, to erupt on the other side of the pit stop. Which again, remember, fuel window expected at most around 19 laps. Hypothetically, if drivers think the softer compound of tire can go that long, could come in. So a look again at what happened to Olivia Hayward. Oh, just a bit too much on that inside curb initially. And a bit of a bonk from behind as well. I think Frankie Francica, who had just been passed by Hayward, nowhere really to go there. Might become the 3rd driver to come down to pit lane to take care of some damage. Ride once more with Alan Berteau, as officially we get ready to hit the halfway mark of this race. Plenty of drivers yet to use their push-to-passes. But we're not really hearing too much fuel saving when we ride on board with any of these drivers. Unwind the steering, go up through the gears once again. And on the 15th lap of the run for these drivers, 10 push-to-passes still left to go. I think it tells you a lot about what the next half of the race is going to look like. Meanwhile, further down, here comes Andrew Kinsella on the charge. Started down the back in 18th, and he's now up to 12th. Makes the move on the Madworks number 10 of Matt Taylor. I think one thing to remember with a lot of these battles are it's a risky time to come down onto pit lane if the driver in front of you is electing to stay out there. You have one driver trying to brake earlier than the other because you can be very aggressive down onto pit lane. Joseph Manning's been caught by Lucas Lodato. And you can see there's some big gains lap over lap as well. It's a very bumpy track in some ways, but we've seen, for the most part, the drivers have set their cars up to be very, very compliant over the bumps. You can see there, though, rear end of Lodato squatting down into the ground. Funnels his way to the inside. You can see the way the car just didn't want to get the power down either. Now, though, with that extra horsepower given to him by the push-to-pass, he makes his way down Casino Straight and makes the move on Joseph Manning. But you could hear the klaxon go off. Now, was there miscommunication? Sam Carasala, Bevan Moyes already in pit lane, and Joseph Manning now joins them. It was obvious from the push-to-pass and the attempted move that Lucas Lodato was only ever going to try and stay out on track. There you see the spin as Carasala going to rejoin the racing surface. And this is what I was just talking about with the difference in braking points. So a bit of miscommunication results in some contact. And with Joseph Manning, I think, taking some terminal damage as a result of that, he's had to take a tow back from within the pit lane, so something bizarre happening to him. No one else electing to follow Sam Carasala into pit lane. We'll get a sense for how good these alternate tires are. What's happened here, though, as we check out the replay? Ooh. Now, cold tires. Maybe the balance of the car shifted around. Oh, he's locked the left front as well. I mean, that seemed more like an aftermath. Very interesting. More drivers take their way to pit lane. Seb Alexander follows in the Bearcat Motorsports car of Lucas Lodato. It means that now just the top 9 yet to rumble down the box. You can see alternate tires going on. Drops off and away, and we'll have a race off pit lane here. Seb Alexander wins that race pretty handily. Lodato spends around 1 second longer in the box. Clean air for them now. How can they move forward from here? And we finally get a split up front. Adam Blocker says at the end of lap 19, time to put those alternates on, as Phil Kraus electing to stay out on track. Now, who's followed in Blocker? Van der Sant stays out. Stanley stays out as well. But Brian Carey and Rashad Craig, they have followed in. Here he goes, off and away for Blocker, 9.1 seconds stationary. And that camera shot tells you all you need to know. He's got plenty of clean air now to enjoy. In contrast, Phil Kraus at the other end of the track, getting ready to make his way towards pit lane. So now just the top 4 and Andrew Kinsella yet to pit. Remember, Kinsella started down the very back of the field. Adam Blocker has been able to get an entire pit stop on his teammate as a result. Here comes Kraus, though. And that was a very, very tidy pit entry. Now the work on the pit crew. Kraus still has to hit his marks. If you make your crew adjust in iRacing, it still costs you those crucial seconds, much like it would in the real world. It was around 2.2 at the time of the pit stop for Blocker. 9.1 seconds stationary for the number 2. It's 8.4 for Kraus, who's instantly off the limiter and does hold on to his race lead. If anything, the gap has grown. It's 3.4 seconds now. Where's Ethan Stanley going to emerge after his pit stop? Where's Brian Carey? Oh, spinning! Oh, my days! Carousala and Craig both slipped their way on through as a result. And heartbreak for Canada's own. Now, he had already come out of pit lane, if my math is correct. Yeah, indeed, the replay shows him off into turn 1 with those alternates on. Oh, victim of the curb. From the onboard, you'll see it again. And once those left side tires were in the air, don't think there was much that Carey could really do. What's happened to his teammate, by the way? Andrew Kinsella out of pit lane, and, well, usually use a lawnmower for that rather than an IndyCar, unless your name's Tony Kanaan. Back up front. It's under 1.8 seconds between the leaders. Those lap time comparisons not going to tell us much right now. I wonder if the Hyperslide teammates are running any differences in their setups. Have they done anything just to dial it in for their own particularities? Is that even a word? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And here Kraus very, very tidy off the throttle, or on the throttle, off the corner. He uses his push to pass for the second time today. So both Blocker and Kraus have 8 push to passes left to use, with what will be 12 laps to go at the line. "13 laps to go." I can never trust the commentator's math. Remember, Sam Carousala made the jump on Rashad Craig by virtue of a 2-lap undercut. Outside of that, Andrew Kinsella would have got the positions on Matt Taylor and Lucas Lodato, if not for a slight slip-up. He now goes back on offense, and Lucas Lodato proving it's not just push to pass, it's push to defend as well. Rumble off the corner, back to the line. Matt Taylor's around 9/10 clear of these two. So after the slight slip up, Kinsella has got to find 2 positions on track to match where he was after coming out of pit lane. He's got 1 more push to pass than Matt Taylor. He's got 2 more than Lucas Lodato. He is very willing to use the curb, though. Lodato kicks up some grass on corner exit. I think you need to be careful. clearly there is a limit to how much of the curve is acceptable. And seen a couple of drivers already fall short. Kinsella up the inside for just short of clipping the right rear of Lucas Lodato. On the power, Lodato opens that gap up to a couple of car lengths once again. Kinsella out of nowhere though, reminding the number 14 to look in the rearview mirror a bit more frequently. Let's keep an eye on multiple fights starting to brew. Sam Carasala and Rashad Craig. After Brian Carey made that mistake, they got a freebie respectively. So did Ethan Stanley. Alan Berteau, he's now the one putting the pressure on to Brian Carey. That gap only 1.5 seconds though between 5th and 6th and then 7th and 8th positions. And so if Alan Berteau and Brian Carey avoid squabbling amongst the two of them, could they end up in a position where... Ooh, but Sam Carasala will get back to it. Half spins, boinks from Rashad Craig. And now as he tries to spool it up in the grass, Alan Berteau on the button trying to find his way on forward. The two teammates, the one that made the contact. Lazy rear end stepping out there for Sam Carasala. And it's going to trigger a couple of pit stops. Here's the onboard. It's as soon as he goes to rotate the car right. Weight transfers around. You can then see, I think Brian Carey's quite lucky that he didn't make contact with Rashad Craig through all of that. And now fight resumes between Berteau and Carey. It's just now for 5th and 6th positions. Craig's going to leave pit lane down in 13th position, right in front of Olivia Hayward as well. Plenty of clear air in front. Next car would be Andrew Kinsella, who must have had another issue. 1:35.074 on the last lap for Kinsella. It's clearly not an easy day by any means. And, well, that is a Dallara IR18 with no front wing, but deciding it's better to stay out on track. And so with 10 laps to go, I'm hoping that Andrew Kinsella decides that he doesn't want to do all 10 laps like that. He'll get passed pretty swiftly by Craig and Hayward. Francisca, Sudik, and Forsyth would all take advantage as well. Here is how it happened. So front wing okay. Oh, car steps out, slides to the inside wall. And Andrew Kinsella eventually has realized that pit lane was his only option. This track's tough. Despite that, we've still got 15 cars left on the lead lap. Joseph Manning, the only DNF. Craig Forsyth 1 lap down. Will Andrew Kinsella be able to re-emerge? 13.6 seconds in pit lane, indicating a front wing change, as you'd expect. He will rejoin the track in 17th spot. Lucas Lodato. He's behind Matt Taylor. Two drivers on alternate compound tires. Now that is most of the field. Big wiggle there from the cars as they jump over the curb. They're not close enough. Quarter of a second between them at the stripe. Still some work for Lodato to do. Meanwhile, Frankie Franchicha, jinks back over into the gravel, and his car resets to pit lane. That may be DNF number 2 on the day. Your leader is going to have 8 laps to go at the line. Phil Krause is just about to see the stripe once more. Here comes Lodato, still trying to find a way to put the pressure on to Matt Taylor. Both of them have got 5 push-to passes left to use. Lodato burns one here. Up towards the hairpin. Taylor goes deep. Maybe a bit too open, though, to Lodato throwing the move. He sheds a bit of the front wing for a second. It magically reappears. But now with Lucas Lodato's magic trick granting him 9th position. Seb Alexander's on the button as well. He is 4 seconds behind these 2 drivers. Their fight's going to continue. Might become a 3-way. About 10 minutes in this race, though, estimated for your race leader. Here is Phil Krause, back down onto the straight. Adam Blocker burns yet another push to pass. It's got about 1 per lap left from this point forward. So does Alex van der Sant. Ethan Stanley's trying to get closer to him. Their gap only 1.5 seconds. Now Stanley does have 3 fewer push-to-passes than Van der Sant. And Van der Sant will use them in defense as well. Down to turn 1 they go. Riding on board with the car nestled in 4th position. You can see in the green for the last 3 for Ethan Stanley to varying degrees. Half a second on lap 26, just a couple of thousandths then the next lap. Back up to 0.2 on lap 28. He's done a good job of preserving his alternate tires, at least in comparison to Alexander Van der Sant. Stanley's lap time's a bit closer to Krause and Blocker than they are to Van der Sant's at this point. It's a very, very tidy car on the brakes as well. And you've got a couple of different braking zone types at this track, of course. The high energy ones like the hairpin, turn 1. Some of the more medium energy ones where you're not bleeding off as much speed. Through the chicanes, for example. Car looks good through all of it. This time, though, Van der Sant responds. Stanley a bit slower. It was 1:22.957 for Van der Sant, 23.312 for Stanley. Talking 0.3 that lap. Van der Sant able to hold on. Meanwhile, Matt Taylor and Lucas Lodato have not forgotten where each other are. Seb Alexander is still exactly 4 seconds away, so with 6 laps to go for these drivers, doesn't seem as though they're going to close up to Bevan Moyes, who has been able now, as his primary tires hold on a little bit better than the alternate compound tires in front. At the very least, he's closed up to Sam Carasala. Can Carasala hold on to the spot in 7th after starting in 5th position? An Indy Alliance racing car, washing out, using as much of the track as possible. Not as much, of course, as Phil Krause in that lap that we saw quite a ways ago, but also you can see the dangling side pod. That's the first time actually noticing that. It's hidden quite well from most of the camera angles by the right front tire. So that, I think, likely where a lot of the lack of speed in this back half of the race can be pinpointed to. Yeah, look at it, just look at the... Now that has got to be contact with the wall of champions. I don't think we saw anything else that might lend itself to that. It's a very, very peculiar one, though. It's Bevan Moyes, bit between his teeth, 5 to go. Time's winding down, and both he and Carasala have 5 push-to-passes left to use as well. Let's keep that in mind. These drivers do get, if they're using third-party programs, they often do get signals when the other drivers are on the button. They know how many other drivers, push-to-passes the other drivers still have left, as that side pod's increasingly dangling on the tarmac itself. Here comes Bevan Moyes on the button. Carasala not going to sit down, though. He's going to stand up and be counted. Apparently it might have been the little bit of argy-bargy with Rashad Craig that saw that damage. I thought he got away with it, to be honest. But that is the margin in these open wheel machines. Got to be very, very careful. Identical counts for the most part inside of the top 10 now. Only Alan Berteau and Ethan Stanley have 3 push-to-passes left. Blocker joins them. Burns another one. Fight as well between Taylor and Lucas Lodato. Now 3 seconds back to Seb Alexander. He's closing, but he's closing too late. Now these alternate tires that Matt Taylor has done 12 laps so far. Remember, Bevan Moyes made his alternates last for quite a while, so we know they're capable. And track temperatures actually slightly climbed back upwards. So in these closing stages, drivers that may have thought that use the alternates at the end where it hopefully will cool down, it's not exactly played out according to the, well, at least predicted forecast. There goes Bevan Moyes up the inside at the final chicane and rips 7th away from Sam Carasala. He's instantly on the push-to-pass, trying to build the advantage to deprive Carasala of a chance of a fight back. And all as your leader, back down the casino straight and ready to make it 2 to go. It's been a dominant drive from Phil Krause. He has led every single lap so far. And guess what? He's still pushing hard and pushing up to the wall. He's 4.3 seconds clear of Adam Blocker, his private label teammate with Powerslide Motorsports teammate. And then the fight for the final step of the podium goes back an additional 16 seconds to Alexander Van der Sant, who on his return to a Monday night is 2 laps away from a podium spot. And again, what a drive from Ethan Stanley. Has put the pressure on Van der Sant. And in these closing stages, with just that 1 push to pass left for him to burn, I think he's unfortunately come up just short. Been a fun fight to keep an eye on, though, and a driver to keep an eye on moving forward. So let's see if we've still got some activity and some excitement left on track between our drivers, as Phil Krause gets ready to see the white flag. I see Rashad Craig around 8/10 behind Alexander. Now he's got 6 laps fresher tires. That's a potential battle. I see, well, Matt Taylor's dropped back, unfortunately, from Lucas Lodato, so I think that fight's done and dusted. And definitely no fight up front. Here comes your leader across the line. One more lap to go. Let's keep an eye on the fight between Craig and Alexander. Alexander gives his teammate a wide berth, and Craig's recovery sees him drive back up now to 11th position. They'll have another lap as well after this, don't forget. They are still yet to see the white flag. What more can you say for your race leader, though? He is the presumptive iRacing IndyCar regular to make a challenge for the upcoming IndyCar Butt Kicker iRacing series. Qualifiers, of course, were meant to start on Thursday. A little bit of a delay. So all that it was. The schedule untouched. It now just begins this coming Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll have coverage here on RaceSpotTV of the beginning of the qualifying series. And Phil Krause, the defending champion, the points leader in the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship, will go into Thursday full of confidence. He conquers the circuit, Gilles Villeneuve, and he wins once more on a Monday night. Adam Blocker's going to make it a double podium for the private label Team Hype with Powerslide crew, and then a long wait, but it should be confirmed as Alexander van der Sant podium on his return, and Hyperslide a podium lockout once again. Ethan Stanley grabs a well-earned 4th position, and then a big wait before Brian Carey comes across the line. It's the final driver inside of the top 5. Alan Berteau, Bevan Moy, Sam Carasala, Lucas Lodato, and Matt Taylor. That should be the rest of the top 10. Oh, these Dallara IRA teams would be very much welcome, I think, here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in the real world. Maybe a track to dream about as a dream combo that we can live out here on iRacing. Final drivers ready to rumble to the line. We'll grab a look at the results, talk to some of the podium sitters, and then wrap up our coverage for this Monday night. There comes Nick Sudik, chased by Olivia Hayward all the way. Prismatic Motorsports number 12 comes up just short in the drag race to the line. All drivers have now officially seen the checkered flag. It is Phil Krause, it's Adam Blocker making their way back around to celebrate down on the pit straight. We'll grab a look at the race results and then get ready to chat with them. So, 6 seconds the margins at the top. And it is private label Team Hype Zone on top again. Van der Sant 3rd, Stanley 4th. And then look at the margin back to the rest of the top 7 or so, about 60 seconds away from Phil Krause. Brian Carey, Alan Berteau, Bevan Moy, Sam Carasala, Lucas Lodato, and then Matt Taylor, your top 10. With Lucas Lodato gaining 8 positions from his starting spot. Rashad Craig bounces back to 11th, just in front of his Indy Alliance Racing teammate Seb Alexander, with Nick Sudik, Olivia Hayward, Craig Forsyth, and then Andrew Kinsella, Frankie Francica, and Joseph Manning amongst those that unfortunately do not see the end of the race. We will hopefully grab a chat with the drivers. I don't see them standing by just yet. Fastest lap, of course, went the way of Phil Krause, to nobody's surprise, I think. And that was set on lap 22, so it would have been right after he took the new alternate tires after his pit stop, making the most of the fresh set of tires and the softer compound of tire. So again, just giving Blocker, Krause, and Van der Sant a moment or two before we start to wrap up our coverage here. Plenty more to come on RaceSpot. As mentioned, with this Thursday, we've got the first round of the IndyCar Butt Kicker iRacing Series qualifiers. And after that, on Saturday, it's time for round 2 of the VCO IndyCar Challenge powered by Open Wheels. Should be a lot of fun as we make our way to the Barber Motorsports Park after starting the season off at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. still a long, long way to go in that season. And back-to-back weeks coming from next, or rather this week onwards, I should say. Does not seem as though Adam Blocker, Phil Kraus, Alex van der Sant will be jumping in to have a chat. So instead, let's look forward to where we go racing next week. We'll head to the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, to Interlagos. It's a track very simple in its nature, but very, very fun. And I think the setup compromise, it's going to be a doozy. You need to be fast in a straight line. Of course, it's around 1.2 kilometers from the exit of the final corner down to turn number 1. And then when you make your way through the midfield, it's all about the speed and lateral changes and how you can really make the most of the mechanical grip. It's going to be a fun run of the season though as well. We'll make our way to Homestead, Miami, to the streets of Chicago for the middle part of this season, of course, with the NTT IndyCar Series not linking up with us as they take a little bit of a break, but then back to Gateway to the Milwaukee Mile. There should be some fun races to close out the season, including a high-speed thriller from Watkins Glen on August the 19th. Still a long way to go, though. Back half of the season to come, and you can catch it all here live on RaceSpotTV. For now, though, it's time to say goodbye. My name's Arjuna Kankipati. So glad you joined us. Busy week of IndyCars still ready to come, and hope you'll join us for all of that. Phil Kraus on top once again. Who knows, though, how things roll on as the new dawn of virtual IndyCar racing kicks off this coming Thursday.